Welcome back to Ghost Powered Entertainment. I'm your host, Kanan Becker, and today I give you 10 movies you should watch right now on Hulu. So before we get started, if you could just do me a favor and hit that like button, because it does have a huge impact on this channel, and I very much would appreciate it. So as you know, I like to help you guys out by giving you recommendation lists for different streaming platforms, everything from Netflix to Tubi to Shudder, HBO, you name it. But I have not done one for Hulu in quite some time. And so I was combing through Hulu this week and I realized, wow, there is some really great horror movies. So because of that, I put together this list. So with that, let's get to it. So kicking this list off is a little indie movie called Shortcut. So the basic idea of this movie is there's a group of teenagers on this bus. When this criminal guy takes it over and is starting to hold them hostage, then all of a sudden it goes sideways and it takes this creature feature twist and it turns really into this nice little fun creature feature. The overall movie just takes place in a couple different locations and it's very simple, but it never gets boring. It is very dark, which gives it this nice creepy feeling. They go into these tunnels, basically trying to escape from this creature that you're not quite seeing, but you do get little glimpses here and there. But I think as long as you go into it not expecting too much and just enjoying it for what it is, I think you'll have a good time with this because it really is just a cool little creature feature. So Depraved is another small budget indie horror film.
It was you who made me what I am.
But this one is very unique in a lot of different ways. It is a modern day adaptation of the Frankenstein's monster story. And this movie has a lot of heart and it very much leans into that. It does have some gore, it does have some creepy elements, but for the most part, this is just a very moving type of story where you're really feeling for this Frankenstein type of character because he goes through some really messed up stuff to get into the predicament that he's in. And it's really not fair, and so you definitely feel for him. So this is basically based on Frankenstein, but it doesn't take the story exact. It does take some liberties and it does twist and turn and it does end in its kind of own unique way. And it is very bleak and dark at times and very creepy and does get pretty gory and there are definitely some body horror moments. So this is just a very small movie, but it is very enjoyable. And I think if you're once again not expecting too much from it, I think you can definitely enjoy what this movie has to offer. All right, now we go to one of my favorite horror movies of all time, and that would be Cabin in the Woods. I've recommended this movie numerous times, and most horror fans have seen this. If you're one of the ones that hasn't, well, I highly recommend you run out and watch this. But even if you have, this is a movie that's just great for rewatching. I can't even tell you how many times I've seen this. This movie is so groundbreaking in a lot of different ways, and it never stops having fun, but also being creepy and definitely a horror movie. The monsters are outstanding in this. The makeup as well as the special effects in every way are done extremely well. Everything just looks great, feels great. Just a very fun movie that I feel like is definitely one that while it's on Hulu, you should definitely rewatch it. Next we go to Hunter x Hunter.
Want to snag a wolf? You gotta outwolf him.
And I recently did a full review on this, so if you want to hear me talk more about it, the link is up here. But this is just a really unique, very cool twist on a werewolf film. This movie deals with real dread in a real world where nature itself can be a villain. Nature itself can be something you're fighting against. But at the same time, it definitely goes deep onto the awful horrors that humans can inflict on each other. But there is just an overall feeling of dread and just this absolutely horrifying, creepy feeling that it just basically goes from beginning to end. And all I gotta tell you is the final 10 minutes of this movie is some of the most insane, gory, just downright brutal scenes of any horror movie I have ever seen. And just based on that alone, if you have not seen Hunter x Hunter, I highly recommend you run out and watch this film right now while it's still on Hulu. So this next movie is one that I will always remember the first time I went and saw it in theaters, and that is 28 Days Later.
They're dead. And you're gonna be next.
28 Weeks Later is also on Hulu, so that's a great 1-2 punch. But I'm talking mostly about 28 Days Later right now, and I remember when I first saw this in theaters, and there had just never been anything quite like what this film did. The speed in which the infected, they're basically zombies, but they're not because they're technically infected, so they are still alive, but they're really in a lot of ways like zombies, but they're just so fast. And just the overall way this movie is shot and the pacing of this film just gives it this feeling that you never are able to catch your breath. Every time you think, okay, it's gonna take a break and to calm down a little, something else crazy happens. This movie is so intense that I remember after watching it, I just basically felt like I had ran a marathon. But it is absolutely a blast as well in a lot of those ways. But this is another one of those modern day classics that I feel like you can rewatch this over and over and still find things you missed, as well as just enjoy it. But if you're one of those ones that has not seen this, this is definitely one that you should add to your list if you want to really know and see what horror is all about. Next up, we go to Spree.
Where are you going?
I'm taking you home.
This is not the way to my fucking house, Kurt.
Oh, no, not your home. My home.
And this is a movie that came out last year. So this is a very fun movie that's definitely over the top and just balls to the wall crazy, but it definitely also has a pretty powerful message as well, because it's talking about this modern need to be socially famous, this modern need to have followers, to be loved by your peers in social media. And this idea that you'll do anything and everything to get that, no matter what, stunt you may pull. We're seeing this in the news on a regular basis. Different YouTubers as well as other platform stars doing these things, basically having their friends do things and breaking these friendships based on them just trying to get clicks, just trying to get views. And it's something that I find myself getting caught up in from time to time. So this movie has a very powerful impact in those ways as well, but it also is just a very fun, very gory, very silly at times movie that I just think you'll get the message, but you'll also have a lot of fun with it. And a lot of movies don't seem to be able to do both, and I think this does it very, very well. So I think for a movie that is definitely socially current and dealing with subjects that are in the news every day right now, but not forgetting to have a good time with it and just be a lot of fun, I think this is one you should definitely check out right now on Hulu. Next up is a film called Sputnik. And this movie is in Russian, so you will have to read subtitles. But this is one of my favorite movies from the last year. This movie is very fresh and really just a very stylistically cool movie. It's an alien sci-fi type of film, but it deals with cosmonauts and the cosmonaut program. And because of that, I felt like it has a very unique feel because it is a very different culture and very different space program than from what we are used to. But I felt like that added just another layer. But just in general, this is a very well done sci-fi movie. It has some very cool practical effects done throughout and just an overall unique creature design. This alien that's in this film does not look like anything I've seen before. It is definitely in its own unique category, as well as the story in general. It is something we've seen before in some ways, but it definitely has its own unique twist and turns. But just in general, this is a fantastic sci-fi horror movie that I've not seen nearly enough people talk about. So I highly recommend, while you have a chance to watch it on Hulu, that you do yourself a favor and watch it. Next up is The Descent. And this is one of the scariest horror films I've ever seen, at least for personally what scares me. Because it starts out dealing with claustrophobia, which is something that to me is a very terrifying idea and concept of being trapped in this cave and barely being able to squeeze through these little cracks in the darkness and all these things that spelunking has going for it in the first place. But then you interject these just terrifying creatures, and the combination just becomes this breakneck, edge of your seat, just terrifying situation that is an absolute thriller and just goes all the way turned up, level 10. It really is just a crazy, intense type of ride. The creatures in this film are absolutely savage as fuck, and just to me are just creepy, terrifying, on top of the fact that you're already in this cave, not being able to see, squeezing through these corners. Just the claustrophobia meets the terrifyingness of these creatures. This movie is just absolutely intense, and if you've never seen it, definitely watch Descent. Next up is Serpent and the Rainbow.
Don't let them bury me. I'm not dead.
The Serpent and the Rainbow.
And this is a classic, but to me, this is a very underrated film. And I've never really quite understood why. Because it is very scary, but in kind of a real world way, but yet still delving into magic and voodoo and hoodoo. There's just this overall dread and creepiness to it that I absolutely love. This movie deals with a real phenomena. This is something that really does exist. It's based on true, not necessarily a true story, but true events. And it's basically these hoodoo voodoo witch doctors that give these people this chemical, this drug, and then by using the drug and the power of the mind, they're able to convince these people that they're basically zombies. And then they get them to be slaves for them and all kinds of stuff. And it's just a really terrifying film because it's based on true things, but yet dealing with something that just feels very supernatural, and it mixes the two in, I think, a fantastic way. And for an old 80s movie, to me, it isn't cheesy. It's just a very well done film that I wish more people would see and more people would talk about. This is the one that if you don't watch any other film on this list, this is the one that I would definitely recommend the highest, because it is just an overall very well done film. All right, so last on the list is The Possessor.
That small thought, it's all it takes to lose control.
And I recently did a review on this, a full review, so if you'd like to hear me talk more about it, the link is up here. But this is definitely one of my favorite movies from the last year. This is just a very cool movie. If you're a fan of body horror, then you must check this movie out. It's done by the son of David Cronenberg, and that would be Brandon Cronenberg. And he definitely follows the footsteps of his dad, because the special effects and the body horror that are done in this are very creepy, disturbing, a lot like his father's, but yet done in a modern, cool way. So it really does feel like his own movie, and it does have his own flavor to it, but you could definitely see the influences from growing up as the son of David Cronenberg. There's so many great things about this film. The acting is absolutely outstanding. You have a couple actors who basically have to continually switch bodies. So they're basically portraying a different character, but in their body, and they continually switch, and there's all these things I don't want to give away, but there's so many different elements to that. There's so many scenes where they basically have to flip their emotions, kind of like flipping a switch. And it is so well done by both of them. Outstanding. Actually, the whole cast, even the small roles, everybody does a fantastic job in this film. So this is just an absolutely fantastic sci-fi thriller horror movie that goes for it completely. There is so many twists and turns and just disturbing but yet enjoyable scenes in this film. It is a very fun ride and a movie I cannot recommend highly enough. So if you have not seen The Possessor, to me, that is a crime, and you definitely need to go watch The Possessor. Alright guys, so that's going to do it for me today. Please do me a favor and hit that subscribe button and ding that little bell, because that is the best way to keep track of this channel and when I post videos like this, and I try to post videos like this at least 2 times every week. And I also want to give a huge thank you to my patrons, because your support means everything to me. And if you would like to find out more about becoming a patron, the link is down in the description. And like always, thank you so much for watching. Please crush that like button. And remember guys, horror can be fun. I will see you guys next time.